Well, in one of the last videos you saw me rebuild this thing. Well, just redo all the solder joints, clean everything up, put it all back together, just kind of refurbish it. And I used the buttons. Sorry, I've got a cough. Got an ear infection. Or getting rid of an ear infection. The reused the buttons off the one I got off the parts car in the junkyard, and just kind of cleaned everything up and put it all back together. And I mentioned that I was having an issue and I was wondering if I had a bad solder joint or something. Well, after putting this in, this is a different control panel. This is the one that was originally in my car. The one that I was using in my car prior was the one out of my parts car. And so I kind of used the best of the three of these that I had. I used the buttons off the one I just got off the junkyard car, and the wheel is off the my parts car, and the actual the panel is off the off my original car. So combined all that, it works like it should, except for I still have the issue with the it starts blowing heat. And so troubleshooting it some more, what I seem to be able to do is, once it starts not blowing heat but blowing warmer, what I seem to be able to do is flip to defrost for a second, which is max heat. When you put on defrost, it puts it on max heat, and then flip it immediately back to AC. And that normally fixes it. I'm gonna have to do it a couple times, but that normally fixes it. So I think I've got an issue with the monovalve, either the coil or maybe there's a rupture in the diaphragm. So, and I think what's happening is the monovalve is getting stuck with heat, or it's getting pushed open to heat, and then I flip it a couple times and it sucks it back down and blocks the heat off. I think I've got something going on kind of like that, but we're not going to know until we tear into it. So let's take the Mercedes over to the shop. We will take the monovalve apart and see what's going on. In a previous video, I rebuilt this monovalve. The genuine Mercedes ones are now over $100. And so what I bought was one of the cheapy ones. I think it was the MTC. And the problem with them is the metal they put in the valve, I don't know if it's a magnet or if it's just a little metal cylinder, is not big enough for the electromagnetic coil on the monovalve to reliably actuate the monovalve. And so you end up with issues with it. Well, what I did is I took the diaphragm off the MTC valve and put it on a genuine Mercedes monovalve. So I just rebuilt the Mercedes monovalve with the MTC diaphragm. And so that's what we're running. It worked perfect through winter and the first part of summer, spring and summer, with no issues with heat or AC. And now I'm starting to get some issues, so I don't know if maybe I have a coil issue or that diaphragm has failed. So that's what we're going to check out. All right, the monovalve on these is real easy to get apart. Just undo this wire back here, and I'm gonna pull this rubber trim off, or just pull it back. Makes it easier to get in here. Looks like we've got some junk in here too. Get that out while we're at it. And you've got 4 flathead screws on top of the monovalve. A little dust up there. So we're going to take those out. Make sure your cooling system is not under pressure. So I'm going to take the cap off. No pressure. I'm going to put the cap back to put kind of a vacuum, not a vacuum, but it'll just help coolant from coming out of the monovalve if it can't pull air, you know. Put these up here where we won't lose them. I'm kind of hoping we find the diaphragm still in good shape, And then I'm just going to swap coils with the parts car. A little electromagnetic coil. But I have a feeling it is going to be a ruptured diaphragm. Weird thing is, it's kind of doing opposite it did when it had a ruptured diaphragm. Ruptured diaphragm before was no heat. It had a no heat situation. Now we're getting heat. So I don't know. So now that we got that off, you can just kind of wiggle this thing and pull it up. You can pull it up all together or not. Alright, so got it apart. What I'm going to do is go ahead and separate the two. This is the electromagnetic coil, and this is the monovalve cartridge itself. Separate those two. Take these, we got a flat washer, or a big flat washer, small flat washer, wavy washer, and then a small flat washer. And here's our cartridge. And the diaphragm on it we got water in there. Rusty water. We have a pinhole in the diaphragm, maybe. Definitely is not like completely torn. So I think what I'm going to do, because it's looking okay. It's got a little bit of a weird shape to it, but it isn't completely failed. It's and water's going to get in there. It's got a little drain to let it back out. So I mean, it's not like it's not going to get in there. So I think what we're going to do, it all looks good. Like I said, it could still have a pinhole or something in it, but I just don't see one. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to go get the magnetic coil off the parts car, and we're going to swap that in, and we'll just see if that fixes the issue. We'll put all this back. If it doesn't, I know I've got some other issue going on, possibly with this cartridge, but like I said, it looks pretty good. Got the one off the parts car, and one thing you want to make sure to do when you put this on, of course, make sure your cutouts are towards the top, and if you can see the little winding comes out to there, you got a notch right there that should line up right there so it doesn't pinch that wire. Just like that on the old one. So that's my old one. This is one off the parts car. Let's reassemble this thing. So we're going to have the washers just like that. Goes like that. Just like that. There's the whole cartridge together. And we will drop this whole thing in there. we go. We'll put our 4 screws back in. Go ahead and start all of them before we do anything. This may not fix our issue, but you know, I've got this, so it's a quick test. You know, 5 minutes, and we'll know if of course, unless this coil is bad too, but that would be unlikely to have 2 bad ones. And one thing I should have done when I went to the junkyard was pull the Monovalve cartridge out of the car in the junkyard. Kind of kicking myself for not doing that, because it could have, if it would have had a good, or at least pull it out and look at it to see if it was either a Bosch or a Mercedes. Kind of sorry that Bosch stopped making these, and now all you've got is the aftermarket ones that are junk. You know, some company could step up and make some money, because I can't imagine it would cost that much to manufacture these. Lost the screwdriver. Alright. And we'll plug the valve back in. And put our molding back. All right, all done. So we'll have to take it for a drive and see if that fixes our issue. Hopefully it does. We are up to operating temperature, and so far we've consistently been blowing cold AC. So, you know, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'll have to drive it, you know, probably to work before I can tell if it's completely fixed, but I will let y'all know, and I'll tag it on the end of this video.